So we just defined what buyer behavior is. Now we want to try to understand, well, what is exactly that we're trying to get in studying consumer behavior. So one of the things is that as marketers, we know what are the things that we put into the market. We know what kind of package we have, we know what kind of price we charge, we know where we distribute the product, we know what kind of promotion, and we also can see how the market responds to our attempts. However, in understanding consumer behavior, we want to understand the why. Why the fact that I reduce price makes some consumer buy the product and maybe some not. Why if I do a package that is silver, more consumers will buy it than if I do a white one, and so forth. So basically, this is what this module is trying to help us understand. So there's a few factors that can help us understand why people behave the way they do. And some of these factors we've already seen in the environmental scanning. So it can be cultural, social, personal, and psychological, where it all leads to the final buying decision process. So now we're going to go one by one and try to see how it can help us understand consumer behavior. So the first factor we want to look at is culture. Now, culture we spoke about when we were talking about environmental scanning, but when we talk about culture in consumer behavior, the idea is that we have a group of consumers that share specific meanings that are all derived because of the culture they grew up in. So different symbols or different rituals mean one thing to one culture and maybe a totally different thing to another. Subcultures are groups within the same culture that might behave differently. So for example, in the United States, we have a lot of demographic subcultures, like Hispanic American, like African American, Asian American. But we also have age, like mature consumers, which is the aging population we discussed before, or the millennials, which is a younger population that grew up with social media and the internet. And all of those have different rituals and different interpretation because of their demographics, in this case, race as well as age. One good example of a company that utilized culture is Benetton. Benetton in the 1990s came up with the idea of actually bridging across demographics. So they came up with a series of ads. This is an example of that ad. As you can see, we have 3 different types of demographics here. We also have maybe 2 different genders, but also maybe 1 type of gender as 2 parents. The whole idea is to try to show that we are actually all the same. Now, if you believe in that value, that all people are equal and the same, then that will motivate you to buy Benetton more because of the social value that it sends out. Now, today, many companies use social values or social cause as a reason to motivate consumers to buy the product. But back then, in the 1990s, it was quite extreme and actually caused a lot of engagement and a lot of discussion among consumers. The second factor I want to discuss is social factor. Social factor is basically the membership, the group that you belong to. And the group that you belong to will actually affect how you behave. One of the main things it will affect is what we call the norms. The norms are the values and attitudes and behavior that the group seems appropriate to its members. For example, one of the main norms that we have in most of the world is that when someone gets married, they put a ring on the finger. So when you see someone with a specific type of ring on a specific type of finger, you already understand that that person is taken. This is a norm. It's not something we are born with, but culturally, we all understand what it means. And in some social groups, they have different types of rings and different types of fingers, so you will understand whether the person is taken or not. Another social factor, in addition to norms, can be the status. So that means who is more important in the group as compared to others. And that importance will give a role for that member within the group. So you have different members in the group, for example, the one who's considered the expert. So that will be the one that when I buy a car, that's the person I go to. Some might be considered the risk takers. So if I have an entrepreneurial idea or I want to know whether something is worth taking the risk, I will go to that person. Sometimes we have the comedian. There are different roles within a group that every person plays. So that brings us to another term, which is reference groups. Reference groups are basically groups that when I, as a consumer, want to behave in a certain way, I refer to these members as if this is an appropriate behavior or not. And we have two types of main reference groups in marketing, a membership group and an aspirational group. A membership group is a group that I belong to. And it can be the primary, so that will be the one that I'm close to, like family, like friends, like neighbors. Or it can also be a secondary group, which might be my religious community, or professional, or even people that just share my demographics. So for example, when I want to buy a car, I might want to try to think, well, what will my family think about it? What will my neighbor think about it? It is an appropriate behavior for someone who is in my class, my profession. Another type of group then is aspirational group. Now for this group, I am not a part of, but I want to be. So for example, all those people who look at celebrities, movie stars, singers, and they imitate how they behave, what they wear, those are their aspirational reference groups. So I refer to them as to what is the next cool thing, what is the next club that I need to go to, what is the next designer that I need to buy products from. So both of them are very important to the company, and the company needs to understand what kind of reference group the consumer has. For some products, membership groups will be more influential, and for some, aspirational groups will be more influential. But this is one of the reasons why that when there's, for example, the Oscar, a lot of designers give freebies, free dresses, free designer jewelry to celebrities, is because they want their aspirational group's fans to actually go and then later on buy their dresses, their clothes, and so forth. Which brings us to opinion leaders. So opinion leaders are those people within the reference group that everybody listens to. Hence, they are the leaders. Now, they can be in the membership group, like the head of the family, the head of the community, or a more senior person in your workplace. Or it can be aspirational group, like a famous rapper or a famous movie star. And those opinion leaders are the ones that help us spread the word. So when a company comes up with a new product, they would love an opinion leader to pick up on it, because by picking up on that product, immediately the whole reference group will follow suit. The third factor is personal factor. Now, personal factor obviously has to do with who you are as a person, which can come from what we call life cycle, or occupation, or an economic situation, but also from your personality and your self-concept. So a family life cycle, for example, can be the first one, which you're a bachelor, so you're a single. So there's a lot of products that come from the fact that you're a single. Then you get married, but you have no kids. So again, you have products, maybe you buy your first apartment, maybe you buy a small car, and then you're still young, but you're starting to have kids. So maybe now you need a bigger apartment, maybe you need a bigger car, maybe you need diapers and baby stuff. And then you're starting to be middle-aged. So you have dependent kids that now might need, maybe they need a car. Or maybe you're a single parent, so you need babysitting services. Or you need maybe food that is easier to cook because you come home, you work, and then you have to prepare dinner. And so forth and so on. Occupation affects also what kind of products and services we will buy. For example, I'm a professor, so maybe I need to wear business suits to go to work. So obviously I'll have a need for that. Economic situation will also be important in the sense of the income, obviously, but also in the sense of how much money I decide to save for the future as compared to consume it now, and that is definitely a behavioral factor, as well as the economic environment. What kind of interest rates? Is it worth for me to save, or is it better for me to spend the money now? Then we have lifestyle. Now, lifestyle is basically a function, as you can see right here, of activities, interests, and opinions. So basically, all of these go into lifestyle. And this is when I imagine how my life should be. This is the lifestyle that I see. And a lot of products we buy because they fit our lifestyle. And sometimes we will say, you are what you buy, or you are what you consume. So this is where this term is coming from. And then last but not least, personality. And personality obviously is the unique psychological characteristic of each and every person. Now we can still put those groups together, which we will see later in psychographic segmentation. So yes, you are unique, but still you might react similar to other people who share some traits of your personality. And the idea is, what is your self-concept, which is this term right here. Meaning, how do you perceive yourself as a human being? What kind of personality you want to project to others when they see you? And how do you want to enhance or maybe hide some of your personality traits? And self-concept then is, who do you think I am? So we have a few terms here. One is the real self. The real self is really who you are, meaning that if I ask someone else who is, let's say, my membership group, to describe me, and then I describe myself, we will get very similar descriptions. Self-image is when I have some idea of who I am, but maybe someone else does not have that idea. So in a way, it's much more subjective than the real self, which is more objective. The looking glass self is when I look at the mirror, but not really. I'm looking through someone else's eyes. So I'm trying to see, again, within my reference groups, what do they see when they see me? And then I will buy products and services to either enhance the positive factors of what they see, or I will try to hide the negatives that maybe I think someone else sees in me. And finally, ideal self is where I would like to be if I could wave a wand. So that's where aspirational groups comes in. If I have a strong self-concept of ideal self, meaning I want to be somewhere else than I am now, I will strongly be affected by the self-reference of aspirational group. Now, before we finish this, though, it's important to note that there is also such a thing as brand personality. And brand personality, of course, is not that the brand has a personality, but those are attributes that we give to a brand. So remember I talked about you are what you consume, so that's part of it. So for example, Harley-Davidson has a very strong follow-up of fans. Why? Because Harley-Davidson symbolizes the personality of freedom, individualistic, sticking it to the man. So Harley-Davidson by itself as a brand has a personality of a rebel. Gucci has a personality. Nike has a personality. Everybody is an athlete. Everybody can do what they want to do as long as they keep active. So personalities can also fit with the personality of the brand and the personality of the consumers.